I hate following that guy. He's so smooth in his audience, his eye contact, his hand gestures, they're just dead on. But why am I here? The reason I'm here is, like you said, we in Nevada are doing some of the same things. 2 years ago, we scheduled a meeting that was going to be held at the very same time that Utah Biomass Group was having one of their major meetings. And so I was invited to that meeting, and I said, wait a minute, I can't be at two places at one time. So we made an agreement. We said, we'll move our meeting, the Pinion Juniper Partnership meeting, we'll move it to the Ely area, and then we'll engage Eastern Nevada Landscape Coalition, and then we'll invite the Utah folks to come to our meeting, and we'll invite and we'll ask our membership to go over to Utah to their meeting. And the reason I mentioned that collaborative movement there is that's how you get things done with limited budgets. And we discovered that when we started to put the agenda together for the that meeting, we discovered that there was going to be a real heavy utilization component. And that's what I face over in Nevada. Nevada does not have the luxury of a wood products infrastructure. It's not Oregon, it's not Washington, it's not the Southern Yellow Pine Group, and it's surely not the Northeastern Hardwood Group. We don't have squat over there when it comes to wood products infrastructure. Then you ask yourself, well, what do you mean wood products? These trees develop what we call non-timber forest products. They make pine nuts, they make firewood. And yesterday we heard they also start to make some interesting value-added products. Like one professor was talking about, you can make the plastics that you wrap your ding-dongs up with and sell them out of the vending machine. You can make pyrolysis synthetic gasoline. One guy hedged the bet. He said, my machine makes pyrolysis and biochar. Interesting thing about biochar, the word biochar was only invented in 2009. That's how new that value-added product is. But wait a minute, the Amazonian Indians were using it 2,000 years ago. The issue with biochar is, as Jonah explained, it's like charcoal, but it's not charcoal, but it's been prepared a certain way so that the volatiles, the gases, have been flashed off. So what remains is something in the neighborhood, depending on your process, 80 to 90% pure carbon. And why that's important, we'll get to that. But what they talked about yesterday, and I just want to go over it a little bit right now, is when you start an industry, when you get the call and you come from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you go to Las Vegas, and they say, okay, start a forest industry, you have to have some kind of model, some kind of road plan. So I looked at the 4 things I needed to do. First of all, I needed to find an enabling technology or technologies that allow me to take this raw material, this biomass, and make something out of it in a fashion that the project or process would pencil. So I needed enabling technology. I searched around, and very quickly I found Jonah Levine. And those of you who heard his speech yesterday realized that Jonah was working for a company that had this mobile process that their goal was to try to move the equipment from spot to spot, either a portable or semi-portable, and process the material and do it so that it would pencil out. Okay, you need an enabling technology. Another thing you need an innovative business model. I mean, you knew you're not going to get continually funded by some charitable organization. So the precursor and now Biochar Solutions has got a pretty good innovative business model. What you're going to do with what you make. Well, that's the third step, and that's called market adoption. You got to have people out there that want to buy your product, okay? A pull situation so that pretty soon the American public will demand, not only maybe let you do it, but demand that you do it, process the excess biomass. And you heard yesterday that there are tens of millions of tons of this material throughout the Southwest. The fourth element, and this is pretty key, is favorable government policy. Nothing happens in the United States of America without favorable government policy. I'm part of favorable government policy. My job is funded in part by the U.S. Forest Service, Region 1-3, that's Scott Bell, and by the U.S. Forest Products Lab, which I have a very good association with. So the four elements there. Let me tell you how we got going with them. I heard about biochar, and then I said, well, I need somebody from USDA. Remember, favorable government policy, USDA. I need somebody from USDA to give me some guidance. They directed me to USDA ARS scientist Jim Ippolito in Kimberly, Idaho. Now understand, I'm in Utah. I'm currently in Utah. I live in Nevada. Now I'm talking to somebody in Idaho. And what I want you to get is the flavor for regional collaboration, how it's going to work on limited funding if, I don't want to get to the punchline yet, sorry. I can't tell you that. Okay, so we made some biochar. How do you make biochar when you don't have a dragon wagon? Well, Jim Ippolito, he's in Kimberly, Idaho. They didn't have a kiln, so we shipped the sample all the way to South Carolina. They turned it into char and brought it back, and he's doing a 4-month pot study, the results of which will be available in 2 weeks. Collaboration. He gave me his test plan. His test plan said we're going to put X number of pots, think coffee cups, and we're going to we're going to put lettuce seeds, and then we're going to check germination. And I had to tell Jim, we don't raise lettuce in Nevada. We raise alfalfa. So there you go. So he switched to alfalfa. So all the farmers in the crowd say, we're soon going to have some information of the impacts of biochar on your alfalfa crop. I'm going to tell you they're going to be tremendous, but I don't want to get to the punchline yet. Okay, so then with Jim, you network, you start to network, and he said, well, you're going to have some machinery. You're going to have to go back to that enabling technology, the dragon wagon kind of thing, pyrolysis, torrefaction. So we were fortunate because we had favorable government policy. We were fortunate to get 2 separate grants. They were $15,000 each. One allowed us to build a dry kiln, to process portable biochar in a portable situation. The other allowed us to pay Jonah Levine, whom you heard yesterday, bring his portable equipment to Ely, Nevada, and we produced 1 ton of biochar in a 2.5-day period. And that ton of biochar, I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so we got this biochar sitting there. We sent it off to a control solutions lab, and we're going to get a full chemical reading on that. And I want everyone in the audience to know, if you'd like to know the chemical analysis of charred Utah juniper, who knows what that is? Do you know what that is? All you have to do in a couple of weeks is send me an email and I'll send you, all right? And the reason we use Control Labs is they're a pretty popular outfit on the West Coast, and they have processed and performed the same kind of chemical analysis on several other char projects. See the collaborative sense of this? So I'm going to share my info with them, and they're going to share their info with me. Okay, so now we got this ton of biochar, and I get a phone call, and it's from Scott Bell. And Scott Bell says, you should call Debbie Page Dumrose up at the U.S. Forest Service Rocky Mountain Station. I says, why? I knew Debbie. I knew she worked in the biochar research. He said, well, call her and find out. So Debbie had put in for a study grant request on Nevada rangelands. Okay? And the purpose of that was to come down and see how, after a forest fire, rangeland fire, how the land would react in the presence of biochar as opposed to not having biochar. Well, there was a hydrologist in Scott's office who was part of the peer group with Debbie, and he was reading it, and he noticed that they were going to get their biochar from Biochar Solutions, Jonah, made out of, where's Jonah from? Colorado. Well, what kind of trees do they have problems with in Colorado? Lodgepole pine. So I called Debbie and I said, Debbie, we don't grow lodgepole pine in Nevada, but we do grow pinyon and juniper. I got this ton of biochar. Could you use that in your study? How much? I said, make me an offer. So we got to she could have it. So that worked out for her budget. Unfortunately, she didn't get the grant, But in the process of collaboration, we established a relationship that not only now included Jim Ippolito, USDA-RS, Debbie Page Dunrose, U.S. Forest Service, University of Idaho, University of Nevada, Reno. How'd that fit in? Well, we're trying to define the markets and were we going to sell biochar for? Now, you know you can sell plastic to people that have to package things, lawn bags, etc. You know you can sell gas, the syngas, etc., to people that need remote electric generators, etc., or people that have access to the grid. But who are you going to sell your biochar to? We've identified three major markets, and the first one is broadacre agriculture, and Jonah explained to you that might not be the key market. The second one I've just mentioned is rangeland restoration. Debbie Page and studying how the rangelands react to biochar. And then Jonah showed you a really good one, a really red hot one is mine reclamation. And you saw the results on that picture of how they had tried traditional mine reclamation techniques. Then they came in with a biochar amended compost, and you saw the different results. So in Nevada, we have a lot of mining companies. That's a big industry in Nevada. A lot of those mining companies own ranches and farms. And why did they own ranches and farms? Because they needed the water rights that were associated to those acres. And remember the speaker yesterday that said in California, the big deal is water. Okay, and that's by the way, one of the best elements of using biochar in your operation, whether it's a hobby garden or a farm, is the water retention and water efficiency activities of biochar. So the key thing then is, do those people also involved with rangelands? Yeah, they're involved with rangelands because the farms and ranches that the mining companies own also have rangelands. So we got the potential, at least in Nevada, for three separate markets, one separate phone call, one separate sales presentation. Well, okay, what did we do with the biochar that we made up in Ely this summer? We sent it to UNR, to the Chemical Engineering Department, and they made pellets out of it. Well, there's a bag of charcoal over there. If I could get the BTU rating of that, I can tell you that our pellets are much hotter. Raw pinyon and juniper for your in the Ely, Nevada area had a BTU per pound of 8,899.4 BTUs, plus or minus 350. Why is that important from an energy basis? It's important from the energy basis because it is higher than the BTU rating of Powder River coal. All right? It runs about 8,600. What happens if you torrefy it or if you char it? The sample that we produced this summer, and it was mainly juniper, we charred it, and in its heating value, BTUs per pound, was 13,573.8 plus or minus 387. That is equivalent to not Powder River coal. It's pretty close to anthracite coal, the big coal, and not this sub-bituminous or bituminous coal. So what I'm telling you is that opened up a great interest in some of our activities as presenting biochar pellets as an export fuel type to send to someplace like Europe or wherever we want to send it. Unfortunately, the port of Ely is a little low on water. You know, we'll get to it. Okay, I know I'm running out of time, but let me give you some more of the information from that test. Those of you in the audience who are interested in the results of that pelletizing activity test, just let me know who you are, and we'll share it with you, because there's no sense you guys replicating or duplicating something that all you wanted to know is, well, what's a range, okay? Or what did they do? The moisture content of raw PJ, 7.8%. Now that's an issue, but I won't go into that. It was pretty dry. The biochar raw material was 16%. Well, there's some issues with making biochar. If you don't treat that correctly and make sure that fires out, and you make a ton of it and put in a bunch of 10 cubic yard dumpsters, it could still burn. So we had to hose it down. That's where the water came from. Ash content, 3.1 in the raw biochar. And that's why you can't make pellets, residential pellets, out of raw PJ biochar, because as you notice, there's a lot of this dirt around here. And in the harvesting and in just the natural content of that raw material, it's got a high ash content. A premium pellet, it's got to be 1% ash or less. So you're going to have to go into the industrial pellet market, and that would work good in London, where they have a power plant that's importing industrial grade pellets. But again, it's pretty hard to get them when you don't even have a railroad coming into your town. Okay.
2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay. The comments were the ash content found in the pyrolysis PJ is too high, blah, blah, blah. Heating value is very high, but the product cannot make a pellet without addition to a binder. So now our research is figuring what kind of binder can we put with the char and get it hold together to make a good pellet. Quality of the pellet's quite poor. Okay. Finishing up here, we didn't get that one grant with Debbie and Jimmy Polito, but right now we're combining and putting in for a conservation innovation grant, USDA. Remember what I said, favorable government policy. We need the policymakers in Washington, D.C. to recognize what we're doing here in Utah, Nevada, and I might add Idaho, Oregon, New Mexico, anywhere you find PJ. We want to get together and we want to say we want to recognize this as a special non-timber forest product and put together program and policy to help us do the kind of work that Lance does here. I will tell you that in a couple of weeks I'm going to go up to Ely and visit our brand new pine nut factory. Pine nut factory, yes sir, a non-timber forest product. If you're into pine nuts and if you appreciate that as a crop and you go out and recreational pick, one of our projects, one of our processes in Nevada is to encourage the treatment of the pinyon portion of the resource to grow more pine nuts. And why would you want to do that? Well, we import into the United States tens of thousands of tons of pine nuts each year. And if you go to Sam's and if you go to Costco, you will find that pine nuts sell for about $10 a pound in a 1 pound bag. But if you buy a small packet of pine nuts, it averages out $100 a pound. So you figure out if you can get some of that money back to the BLM to encourage them to have a pine nut protocol like Doug Page and we had last year when we had our tour. You got something there. I just want to repeat something that was alluded to yesterday, and some of the things that Darren mentioned is, in order to make this work, in order to make PJ work, you've got to take all of the elements and you've got to look at the PJ as a system. You've got to take in the advantages of recreation, lifestyle, air shed, for example. Some of the products you get off of here, fire control, and the impact that what they're doing here will impact on the watershed. And like, it's terribly important in Nevada, it's important, obviously important in California. So that's where we are in Nevada. Those are the things we're doing. We're doing them on a collaborative basis. We're sharing all our information with the people that are curious, that they're seeing, well, what are those guys doing? And we think that's the pathway, plus approaching those 3 market areas, developing those to get this industry on its feet and get it to pencil and get the boots on the ground that we need. Thank you. Are there any questions?
I just wanted to point out that Steve Walker pointed out to me this morning that we've got excellent pine nuts all around us right now.
Awesome. Sir?
You mentioned the biochar as a additive to compost,
yes, sir.
For an amendment, things of that nature. Have you considered actually getting it into potting and planting mixes and things like that?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're working with some end users, Whole Foods, for example. There's a whole industry out there,
right,
just in composting, and it's grassroots, but it's something that is going to cause change. You have to change the way American agriculture looks at its land. We cannot continue to add more and more and more nitrogen fertilizer and continue to take and take and take from the land. I won't give you a lesson in what's happening in the Midwest and the drought and all that stuff, But if you return, if you give back to the land, you'll get the results from it.
Scott's is a great contact.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Let's give